Yo, sorry for the confusion to people who just follow me on Instagram and generally haven't seen me going live, because going live is something that I almost exclusively do on Twitter, but Twitter's giving me a bit of a headache tonight, and Twitter's not working for me, so we took it to Instagram. So we're gonna give it a minute. We're gonna see how people are doing. I know we probably won't get as many people in here because it's not as easy to share. Also, definitely weird because there's like a lot of people who follow me on here that definitely don't follow me on Twitter, like people I went to high school with and stuff. But that's okay. We're fine. We're gonna let it rip. So I'm gonna give it like one more minute and then we're gonna do it anyway. Just fuck it, why not? One more minute, and then we're gonna go. Glad you guys can actually hear me now. 1 second. I'm a righty. My watch is on my left hand. I don't know if it's because it's reverse or something. Am I supposed to put? I don't know. Thoughts on Victoria on The Bachelor? Not gonna be. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not a huge fan. It's causing a lot of drama, and I don't love that. Okay, we're doing this. All right, 82 people. That stinks. I'm a little upset about that. We're pushing 1,000 on Twitter, but that's okay. It's fine. 82 of us here. We're riding. We're making it happen. We're gonna do it. I'm gonna give people like 30 more seconds to make their way over. And then we should be good. Also, just like fuck Periscope, bro. Terrible. Absolutely terrible app. Just absolutely garbage. Garrett would love to hang out Friday, you know that. All right. Screw it. We're doing it. We're here. Quality over quantity, like we said. Mental Health Monday, part 2. Shout out, Chelsea. I'm glad you're here, too. Thank you for sharing on Twitter, even though it was nothing. Brandon Walker. I'm glad Brandon Walker's live, too. I hope he's having a fantastic night with the national championship. Okay, so the first question that I got for Mental Health Monday was, what are some ways to actually gain motivation in the mornings? I feel like getting out of bed on a daily basis is such an uphill battle. So like all of you know at this point, my whole shtick is making your bed, getting up in the morning, doing your thing. That's not hidden at that point, even for people here on Instagram. I've posted the make your bed shirt, posted everything. So that's my whole thing. In terms of motivation for getting up in the morning, I think if you have a job, like you're going to have to get up in the morning. That's obviously like how it works. You're going to have to get up and go to your job. But I think it's that time in between. It's like, can I find time for myself in the mornings between waking up right away and before I end up going to work? Like, what can I do with that time? So it's not like you're racing. It's not like you're up, you're out, and you're at work before you even know it. So my recommendations, set an alarm, obviously. I told you guys last week about that app that I use where you have to like enter a math problem and you have to like take a picture of something and it's these different things and it just kind of like helps force you to get up a little bit earlier. Or just to not snooze as much because it kind of strong arms you into it. So that's one thing. The other thing I would say is like, something I like to do at least is leaving myself like a task in the morning. I know that sounds kind of weird, but if you leave yourself something that you definitely have to do, it could be a quick errand. It could be, thank you for all the kind words. It could be a quick errand. It could be folding your laundry. Well, you should fold your laundry the night before, else it'll be super wrinkled. But yeah, I'll post the app on my Twitter afterwards, or I'll post it on my story too. I'll make sure to post that app on my story. It's really great. Thank you for the compliments on the mustache. But what I like to do is I leave myself a task to do in the morning. So I know that I have to get up and do that, because what's the difference? If you're the only thing that you're leaving yourself in the morning is the difference between a 10-minute shower and a 3-minute shower, and that's the only difference in motivation between you getting up or not getting up, that's not going to be enough to get you out of bed. You're going to say, you know what? Let me take a couple more minutes. And I'll just keep snoozing. I'll snooze. Like I said, boom, 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 boom. I used to have, 601, 602, 603, 605. I get that. So I used to be that person. I still am that person. I'd be lying too if I said I get up right away every morning. I'm a snooze god still sometimes. But I would say my main thing would be leaving yourself that one task to do. I'm honestly, personally, under the impression that like being a morning person is a myth. Like No one, like, you watch these TV shows and someone like wakes up and they like throw the blinds open and they stretch and it's like this amazing thing and they're like, let's attack the day. Like, that's not my life. I've never lived that way. I've only ever been attacked by the day. Like, I've never gone in and been like, yo, let's crush this day. Like, I feel like the day's always attacking me. So it's getting yourself ready to come in, beat the day, get up there and have yourself in a spot that you're ready, kind of get after it. Also, I do shower in the mornings. It helps me out. It helps wake me up and it's motivation to do. Yeah, we hit 3 digits on here. Let's go. 100 on IG. Who would have thought? But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's possible to become a morning person. I think that is a myth, but I do think if you leave yourself important things to do in the morning and you give yourself a reason to like get up and be productive before work, that's huge. Because I just think it's really bad if you wake up right away and then it's like, and you're racing through your morning. I think you should leave some time for yourself in the morning. Keeping your blinds open helps a ton. Like Chelsea just said in the chat. That's so facts. That's something too. I said last week I bought myself like automatic, like those fancy, like the Alexa lights. And what I do is I just say, hey, turn them on to 100% brightness. They blast me in the retinas and then I'm forced to get up. So I don't know if that's for everyone. Maybe that would be a tough start to your day, but it works for me. Hope that helped a little bit. Question number 2. This is much deeper than how to get up in the morning. Having high expectations for oneself and accepting one's own failures is a constant balancing act in my life. How do you walk that fine line in your life and still be yourself without worrying of others' opinions of you? Okay, this is a tough one because I am someone who definitely struggles with caring a little bit too much about other people's opinions. I think everyone pretty much struggles with caring about other people's opinions for them. So I remember being like very little and putting a ton of pressure on myself. I've always kind of been that kid. I think it was a combination of my ADHD and inability to focus, my depression and anxiety that I just had no idea about at that point because I was 6 and I was relatively fine otherwise, other than just being a kid who cried a lot and who was sad all the time. But I remember like getting, so in terms of like the balancing act of like expectations for yourself, I remember getting called up to like the chalkboard in the morning or not in the morning, getting called up to the chalkboard to like do a math problem that I definitely 100% knew I would watch and knew I would do and knew I was capable of doing. But I'd still start crying. I'd still start stressing. I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. It's too much. What if I get it wrong? What if I get it wrong? I was so focused on the fact that like, what if I get it wrong? I never even gave myself a chance to get it right. And while that's just like a very micro example of like an experience I had as a very little kid in like 3rd grade, I think it still applies to a ton of my life now. And I think you don't want to stop yourself. You don't want to hesitate too much. You don't want to be the person who is too afraid to do anything because you set the goals too high for yourself. But you also won't be the guy who doesn't set goals for yourself. You want to be realistic. So I think finding stuff that's realistic, finding things that you like to do, finding things outside of your job and your performance, and just like setting a realistic bar for yourself is really important. How do you find that realistic bar? I think that's different for each person. I know I myself, which is probably not the most healthy thing in the world. Like, I work a career and I chose a job that I get immediate gratification. I send a tweet, whether it's from my personal account or the Barstool account or any account in the world. I send a tweet and I know in about 15 seconds whether or not that's going to go over well and whether people are really going to like it. And I think that's enabling my own insecurities and enabling my own behavior a little bit, which is definitely not the most productive thing in the world. But I've also chosen something that works for me. And I don't wallow too much and I don't let myself get too upset if something doesn't work. And it's just kind of an opportunity to do a little bit better the next time. So just like overarching point, I'm just looking back to the screen. That's why I wanted my phone over there so it looks like I'm still looking at you, but it's fine. So having, accepting my own failures, like, you're gonna fail. Like, you're gonna fuck up and you're gonna mess up. 2 days ago, I was getting lambasted by the internet because I sent a tweet that I probably shouldn't have sent. It was something fucking stupid. It wasn't productive. I don't know who I thought I was helping by doing it. Wherever you stand politically, wherever you stand on anything, like, I sent something that was probably pretty dumb and I probably shouldn't have done it. That's a failure. That's a mess up. But I'm not gonna let myself sweat it too much. Like, it didn't hurt anyone. If you're not hurting someone, if you're not blatantly disrespecting someone, if you're not making someone else's life worse and you're not making your own life worse, it's generally just not something that's worth wallowing on. And if it's someone else that you've affected, address it with them, talk to about them, and then after that, there's really not much more you can do. And most of the time, so thanks, Joey, most of the time, that other person is not at all, like, literally ever thinking about that one thing you did to them 10 years that you still stress about. When I say worrying about other people's opinions of you, let me give you a story here. I was like really stressed, like 3 a.m., couldn't sleep a couple weeks ago. And I like started getting on myself about how I was kind of a jerk to like my 8th grade English teacher. I literally went like found my 8th grade English teacher on my like middle school's website, sent her an email like kind of apologizing for being a dickhead when I was in high school or middle school, I guess it would have been. And she emailed me back the next day and was like, you were a delight. Like you were not a big deal. You were a middle schooler. It's fine. So when you ask, are you someone that is a bit hard on yourself and stresses about these things? Absolutely, yes, I am. And I get it. But generally that other person's not still going to be thinking about the thing that you're stressing about. Sometimes maybe, but how do we know? We don't. Next question. If a family member has anxiety or depression and I want to check in on them, how do I do it without seeming like I'm prying or being annoying? I don't want to just wait for them to be having a bad day for me to respond. I want to be proactive and supportive without being too much. I think this is a great question. First of all, you're a great person for even thinking of this. You have no idea how many people who just don't look out for people like this. Like to you, it's probably such a given. You're like, I want to be there for my girlfriend. I want to be there for my mom. I want to be there for my dad. Like regardless of who it is, it's a great question to still have because they are already, and I promise you this, they are in a much better spot in their life and they are going to be happier and they're going to have a better support system just from you asking that question and caring than 99% of people on this earth. People go days, weeks, months, however long without anyone ever asking how they're doing. So you are a blessing already for like being that person for someone. That's incredible. Personally, me, as someone who is that family member, who's the depressed person, I've never, ever once myself been annoyed by someone reaching out and asking if I was okay. Is the timing always perfect? No. Is it always a conversation that I want to have with that person at that time? Do I want to digest my horrible anxiety-ridden day with a friend at 10 o'clock when they happen to reach out to me? No, I don't always want to do that. But I can promise you for a fact I've never been like, why are they reaching out? If there's positive intention and you're well-intentioned, which you are because you're asking this question, no one's ever going to be upset with you for that. And if they are, that is something that I don't think they will be, but if they are, then that's something that you could definitely bring up with them and approach with them and be like, hey, I want to be there from you, but I don't want you to have to reach out. I want to be able to be there for you all the time, even when you're not comfortable reaching out. You feel like you're being a burden. You're feeling like being an annoyance. Because if there's anything that comes with anxiety and depression, it's being a burden and being a nuisance. Like that's just something that lives in the psyche of anyone with any of those things. It's something that lives in the psyche of people without any of those things. So it's just sometimes just knowing that someone's there is enough, but the extra step of just checking in and asking how they're doing, it never. Check on your friends is something that's said a lot, and it's something that's definitely overplayed, but it's something that makes sense and it's good. And it's just, if you're doing that, you're already being great, and I promise they're not going to be annoyed with you. Just be there for them and don't judge. Be there for them to listen. Be there for them to listen, because they do feel like a burden. And once you open that, they're going to probably dump on you. And so you need to be ready for that. So it's a responsibility you also shouldn't accept unless you're ready for it, I will say. How do I deal with intrusive thoughts was the next question. So my personal great tool to deal with intrusive thoughts is meditation. I deal with intrusive thoughts often. I think a combination of me having ADHD, which I no longer take medicine for, and a bunch of other things, just my in my head constantly all the time is what I feel like I'm dealing with. So meditation's been the big thing for me, but meditation's a funny thing. People talk about, they say, oh my God, meditation, it's life-changing. It's incredible for me. Like, I can't believe I was a person who didn't meditate. I meditate every day. Like, I went to this retreat. That shit doesn't happen overnight. So don't think that like happens overnight. I remember the first time I sat down and meditated, I think I lasted like 15 seconds, maybe 15 seconds. And I was like, how is this even possible? People do this. So my first recommendation and step in terms of intrusive thoughts, there's a million different things you could do, but would be meditation, but would be guided meditation. So what guided meditation is, for anyone who's not aware, is basically there's these apps. I talked about them last week too. And there's apps that help you specifically kind of like get into a proper headspace. I think that's the name of one of the apps, Headspace Calm. You could just search meditation apps. And they help you get into this headspace and this place where it's just you're focusing on what they're saying. And when you're focusing so much on what someone else is saying, you're less likely to have that other terrible shit bouncing around in there. So I'd say start with guided meditation. Start with 3 minutes. Move on to 5 minutes maybe. Eventually, maybe you'll get yourself to 10. Then all of a sudden, before you know it, you're killing a half hour at the end of the day, and you're starting to feel better. And then before you know it, maybe you don't even need that anymore. I now find that, I've now found myself that like if I do guided meditation, I struggle a little bit because that like it takes away from the emptiness, but that's like me meditating every single day for almost 3 years now. So I'd say get yourself there. It's a great thing to practice. What's better than getting better at something? And I think getting better at meditation is amazing because you just feel so good about yourself, because guess what? It's you. Nothing else is going on. It's just you, and you're doing that shit yourself, and you're making yourself feel better. There's a bunch of people too. And my guy Rudy, thank you. Headspace is incredible. Like it is. There's so many, and I think Headspace just came out. I think someone might have said it with like a Netflix special too, which I think would be cool if you're more of a visual person to kind of understand the visual side of aspect of things. And I think that's really interesting too. So check out that documentary. And it's just like anytime you're able to get yourself in this proper headspace and focus on something else, the goal is like nothing, of course. Like at the end, the light at the end of the tunnel is being like that monk sitting there like this, floating in the air, basically. But that takes a long time, and it takes practice like anything else. Like running or just anything. It takes practice, but you'll get there eventually, like anything, if you practice hard enough. And I think in terms of other things, I mean, you could drown out the noise with music, or you could drown it out by putting the same comfort show, RIP to The Office on Netflix, but like the same show on over and over again. But I think meditation is something that you can kind of see your progress in, and is maybe a little more productive than those other things. So I just highly recommend it. Like no one's ever going to tell you you're meditating too much, or that your meditation is hurting your day. Like you're going to be okay, and it's going to help you out. I promise. Someone said, I just started therapy at 34. Been in denial a long time. How do you at all drive the combo in therapy? I think this is a really nerve-wracking thing for a lot of people, so I'll finish the question first, though. Buddy, you can go out in a little bit. One sec. My dog's scratching. So, hey, this happened. So it's like an example, like, hey, XYZ happened this week 10 years ago. I want to dig in, or do you let it flow? So first of all, to whoever submitted this, because it was anonymous, congratulations on getting yourself into therapy, especially at 34 years old. Like, I feel like at 34, you probably feel like you probably have your shit together, and it's got to be stressful to admit that you don't, because going to therapy is kind of admitting that you don't have it all there, and you're still figuring it out, which is totally fine. So, yes, love to Buddy, Katie. But Buddy's not going to piss on my roommate's bed again. I will not allow it. The door to downstairs is locked, and it's not happening. So, first of all, sorry, back to the point here. I'm really proud of anyone who's going to therapy. Good for you. It's tough. It's a tough step. It's stressful. It's overwhelming. It's difficult for a lot of people, and you did it. So you're already like 99% of the way there to like feeling better. So congrats for that. Next, I would say, so sorry, let me just read the question again. Oh, how do you drive the conversation? I think it totally depends on you and your personality type. I think anyone who follows me on here and stuff knows, like, I'm not afraid to, like, have a conversation and chat and drive it. And some people are going to want to lay back more. But you have to remember, they're a therapist, they're not a mind reader, and they're a psychiatrist, they're not a psychic. You wouldn't go to the doctor and not tell them what's wrong with you and expect them to figure it out. You might go and say, hey, I've been getting headaches, and I'm not sure why. And they might say, oh, well, are you getting them at any specific time of day, or when you eat specific foods, or when you do this or when you do that? And if that, like, they're going to end up, maybe figuring out what's wrong. It's the same thing with therapy. You don't need to walk in there and say, oh my God, when I was in first grade, this kid was mean to me, and since then that doesn't have to be how it is. It's not like it is shows in the movies. You're not going to lay on a couch with your feet up and your head back and just dump it all out of you. No one is that person. I'm very open, as you know. I'm talking about the shit right now, and that's not me. I've never been that person. So I just think it's to each their own. You got to get in there. You have to figure out what's comfortable, and also have that conversation with your therapist. Say, I really do kind of have a difficult time opening up, but I want to, I want to talk to you, and I want to figure these things out. They want to think they're doing a good job too. A therapist or a psychiatrist wants to think they're doing a good job. They want to feel like they're helping. They don't want to leave a session and say, oh, that person lied to me the whole time and they didn't really help. So it's a give and a take, and it's a back and forth. And if you decide to open up and try as much as you can to get there, opening up's hard. It's funny because I was just watching The Bachelor, and opening up to someone is hard. It's a difficult thing to do, but that's literally what that therapist's job is and what they're there for. And you can trust them with any information that you have, I promise. How on earth to manage anxiety over something you have zero control over? If anyone else out there knows this, definitely let me know, because I would appreciate some tips on it. But I think I'm better than I used to be, so I'll try to speak to it for that. So again, it's kind of in the question, if you have zero control over something and there's nothing you can do about it, there's nothing you can do about it, and you have zero control over it. That seems like the dumbest, stupid, most straightforward answer, but it's true. I think it's realizing it's how important of an impact is this having on your life. If it's something that doesn't affect you in addition to having no control over it, push that shit away and push that to the side, because it's cool. If it doesn't affect you, I've spent a long time in a long part of my life getting really upset and angry and overwhelmed by things that had literally zero bearing or impact on my life. Maybe a slight impact or bearing on my happiness at times, but never a true impact on my life. So it's making sure that we're focusing our energy and our time and our focus on things that actually matter to us. And also, I think it's focusing our time, energy, passion, whatever it would be, on things that we do have control over. Because there's always going to be those things. There's going to be pandemics. Hopefully there's going to be pandemic, and then there's, like, none of us had control over COVID. None of us were able to do anything about that. It was almost made a joke that I shouldn't make. None of us here had anything to do with that, but it's still affecting us and it's impacting us. So while we don't have control over COVID or what we could do about COVID, we do have control of what we could do with ourselves during COVID. That would be an example of something there. You could help yourself out. You can start to work out if that makes you feel better. You can stop working out if that makes you feel better. You can start cooking more. You can eat healthier. Make changes in these things that you can make a change on a daily basis and you can make yourself feel better about. And then when you're not stressed about the things you do have control over, those other things that are always going to be stresses and are always going to be a little overwhelming, it's just a little less of a bearing on your day. It's not your whole day. It's not your whole life. It's not all these things, because you are controlling the things that you do have control over. Exactly. Shawnee Pops. Yeah, therapy is awesome. Not every therapist is the same. Never get discouraged if the first therapist isn't the right fit. I 100% agree with that. I've been, like I said, since I moved to this city, I think I've had 15, 18 therapists. There's been a ton of them, and it hasn't always been the right one. But it's you're gonna find one eventually. Like anything, you don't walk into a room and love every single person in there. You don't love every doctor you have. You don't love every person you meet. You don't love every boss you've had, coworker you've had. Like, that's just not how it works. So you don't love every first date. Doesn't turn into a marriage, and it's just kind of the same thing. I wish it did, but it doesn't. So you're gonna have to find someone that works for you. Maybe it will be the first person. Maybe it'll be the 10th, but eventually it'll be worth it. And then once you find that person, it's a blast. I don't know if it's a blast, but I love therapy, so it's kind of a blast for me. Any tips for pushing anxiety away for a more convenient time? I think on a micro scale, that's okay to do sometimes. I'm someone who gets panic attacks, so like those I can't really suppress or push down. Deep breaths, focusing on yourself. I know there's this one strategy. Let me Google it right now. I know Justin Bieber posted it on his Instagram once, so I'm going to try to find it that way. Someone actually just DM'd me on Twitter and asked for this today. So, tips to help with an anxiety attack. Sorry, I'm going to retweet this one more time in case anyone else who missed it wants to jump in. Tips to deal with an anxiety attack. This is Justin Bieber's 5 things, or whatever's going on. So, look around you is the first thing. So, it's called this 5 things theory is what it's called. So, find 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. And basically what that's called is it's called grounding. So when you feel like you've lost kind of all control, anxiety, your heart starts beating, you get that heart beating faster feeling, you get that sick to your stomach feeling, you start sweating maybe, you put your hair up if you're a girl or a boy like me and you have long hair. And then you're like, oh, this is a little overwhelming, what's going on here? How do I snap myself out of this? Grounding is, I've found at least, the best way to do that. It's focusing on what's around you. You're not having a heart attack. Probably not. I mean, 99.99, especially if you're someone with anxiety, percent of the time, you're not having a heart attack. You're not going to die. It's going to be fine. I mean, I've had to go to the bathroom at work before and sit in the toilet and, put my head between my legs and that's kind of a gross visual of me putting my head between my legs on the toilet, but the sentiment's there and you know what I'm talking about. So grounding exercises, I say, are almost everything. And take that thing I said, I'll post it on my story, I'll post it on Twitter or whatever, and save that shit to your phone. 5 things you can see, you're always gonna be able to find that. Something you can touch. I've had panic attacks sitting at this table I'm at right now, and it's just looking around and being I'm here, I'm present, I'm gonna be okay, you're gonna be okay. And having one at work, like Brandon just said, is terrible. I've had them at work a bunch of times. Well, so lately because I'm doing better recently, which I'm happy about, but they're going to happen. So it's just pushing anxiety away, I'd say, for a later time isn't the way I would exactly phrase it, because I don't want it to come back, but mitigating it and kind of compartmentalizing and pushing it down for a little bit, I think you can do through grounding exercises, and that helps a ton, and it's just going to make you present, and you're going to realize that you're not dying, and you're probably not going to throw up on yourself, and you're definitely not having a heart attack because you're a 22-year-old healthy dude, and they don't generally have heart attacks. So I think it's just making sure, understanding that anxiety is what you're dealing with, which if you're in here, we're probably on the same page on that. Exactly. Push your anxiety away. You're telling that, yeah, exactly. Pushing the anxiety away, it's not going to help you out. So you're going to ground, you're going to feel better, you're going to beat it, and then you're going to be fine. I promise. You're going to be cool. Got a couple more questions we can do. I don't know if there's any new people here on Instagram. If you're new, because we're on Instagram this week, shout out. I'm saying this week like I've been doing this for months, since the second week, but we did a bonus Wednesday. So if you're new here, I appreciate it. Appreciate you checking in. Trying to all feel a little better here. So someone said I've diagnosed anxiety disorder for almost 2 years now. My biggest struggle is health anxiety. I'm generally a very healthy individual. However, I tend to deal mainly with physical symptoms of anxiety, like we were just talking about, racing heart, chest pains, dizziness, etc., which often lead to my brain jumping to the worst possible conclusion. If I've dealt with something similar, yes, I have absolutely dealt with something similar. I deal, like, that is what my anxiety manifests as. I've been having an anxious couple days. I've eaten maybe 550 calories today. And I'm lucky and I barely got to stomach that food down. Is it because I have COVID? No, I tested negative for COVID today. Is it because I have the flu? No, I feel fine otherwise. So it's just, one way I've found that helps this a lot, specifically with the physical kind of visceral type reaction things, is journaling. So what I do, if I'm not feeling well, or if I feel like I'm being anxious, I write down what I'm feeling. I write down when I'm feeling this, and I write down kind of how long it lasted for. And then you realize, oh wait, when I drink my second coffee of the day on an empty stomach, and then an hour later, I have what I would describe as being super anxious or feeling, my heart's racing, I'm sweating. Maybe you shouldn't be drinking that second coffee of the day on an empty stomach, even if you're trying to diet and not eat as much, which is a note to myself. But so I found journaling, writing down the common things, writing down these things you deal with, writing down anything, and then just journaling is great for a billion reasons. But the one main reason that I've found and that journaling has helped me is being able to look back on these things and be like, of course it's anxiety. This has happened a million times a day, or a million times at the same time a day over the course of months. So it's just kind of finding out your own patterns and habits, and then trying not to put yourself in anxious situations. First dates, the first day of work, things like this, you're always going to end up being a little anxious towards. Everyone gets date anxiety and then can't eat. Everyone gets anxious when they're meeting a new person, when they're doing a new thing. But you want that to be the most anxious you ever get. You don't want the panic attack in the middle of the day for absolutely no reason that you don't know what it's triggered by, but it is triggered by something. So it's just kind of journaling, writing down habits and other things that you're doing that might be causing that. Journaling with Google Doc is great. That's facts. I write so many things in my notes on my phone because I just know it's right there and I know I can look at it exactly. I think that's what we're going to do today because it's 10:41. Football's back. Might have to do some memes. So I'm sorry for everyone who came over from Twitter that we had to do this. To anyone who was new on IG and stuck around, I appreciate it. You guys are appreciated. Hope this was able to help a little bit. If it wasn't, don't tune in next week, but maybe I'll be better next week. So maybe give it a shot again. I appreciate you guys as always. Thank you very much. Stay good.